world, let's chat it up. We're talking competitions, uniforms, and all of the above. It's the Cheer Mom, yes, the Cheer Mom podcast. Cheer Mom, yes, the Cheer Mom podcast. Cheer Moms, your podcast is on.
I have a confession that I have to make. It's really a secret that's just between us. Can we just keep it between us? I bought several boxes of Girl Scout cookies, an untold amount from a fellow kitty cat, by the way. Got to support young women in business. Bought Girl Scout cookies, and zero member of my families know that I bought Girl Scout cookies or where they are. I have a secret stash, and by the time this episode comes out, not like they listen to the podcast anyway, all of the Girl Scout cookies will have been vanished into my mouth while I sit at my desk. Super healthy choices that I'm making. All right. Like I said, get overwhelmed really easily this time of year, and I love making lists. It's a sensory thing for me. It's a get it out of my brain, get it out of my body kind of thing. So I do this new method of I'm also not very good at time management or knowing how long something should take. And anyway, this is turning into a dull story, and it doesn't have to be this long. Anyway, so I do this stream of consciousness to-do list. And so I'm doing that. And it's just write down, it's like a brain dump, write down whatever is in your brain, write down whatever's in your head. And I wrote down a couple of to-do things, and then it turned into a journal entry, and then it turned into, I guess because I'm feeling salty and feisty, it turned into dumb questions people ask about cheer. So that's what today's episode is about. This is all in good fun. And it's just annoying questions. You guys know when you tell people family and acquaintances and people not familiar with All-Star or high school competitive cheer that you tell them and they ask these questions. So I'm just going to go through them. We'll see how long this takes and how long my vent sesh is going to last. Hopefully you guys will be like, yes, exactly. So here we go. Have you ever met someone with a tattoo and asked them why they chose that specific tattoo? They probably had a story about how it's significant to them. I have 3 tattoos, and they all have a very deep and meaningful significance to me. And every time someone comments on one, I'm like, thanks. And then I give them a 5-minute explanation about why it's important to me. Even if tattoos aren't your thing, I think that we all need little encouragements and things that are specific to us that remind us of the things we love most and the words that motivate us to keep going. And that's why I started TCC Jewelry. The necklaces, bracelets, and rings are simple and engraved with little words that have special meaning, like hit 0, 2 minutes and 30 seconds, 1, 3, 5, 7, and more. And check out the new collections like the Faith Collection and introducing the Dance Collection, baseball, softball, and volleyball collections. Get something special for yourself or that special athlete or coach in your life today by visiting tccjewelry.com and enter coupon code CheerMomPod for 15% off your order. That's tccjewelry.com and enter coupon code CheerMomPod for 15% off. All right. Edit Avery's gallery. Just kidding. Started at the top of the to-do list. Okay. And I don't blame people for being ignorant. It's when they're ignorant and they think they're being cute or funny that's when the annoying factor comes into play for me, where they're like, oh. You'll see what I mean. So it's like, what do you do, young lady? And she's like, I am in competitive cheerleading. And then Uncle Larry goes, can you do a cheer for us right now? Now, our high school friends could, and it would feel awkward, but you could. But if you are an elite all-star cheerleader, you know that's not the way that it works unless you're on a level 7 team, which I've heard rumor that they're getting rid of the chant part. I don't know. Okay, next one. Oh yeah, my daughter does cheerleading. This actually happened to me. I was sitting around a table with a group of young moms who just were as sweet as could be and were as genuine and as earnest as they could be. And so I'm not trying to sound like a terrible human that I'm like making fun of this woman, but they were like, you know, how many kids do you have? What are they involved in? And I was like, well, my daughter is a competitive cheerleader. And this mom got super serious, and I mean, she was just so sincerely serious and was like, do you worry about the boys touching your daughter inappropriately? And I had to stifle a smirk. I was like, that's never even crossed my mind. I'm sure, unfortunately, that it has happened before sometime in the history of co ed stunting, but that never it just has never crossed my mind, I guess, because of like so many reasons, like the family values at our gym, the fact that most of the boys that my daughter's been on a team with are straight. So I was like, no, I don't worry about that at all. No, they don't touch her inappropriately. But like of all the things, that was your first thought, your first question. What if I was and I would have been like, yeah, like it's a real thing. Like we really have to like how do you even talk about that if that's what you're worried about with someone you just met like in a group? You know, it was one of those like icebreaker things where you just like go around the table and share something about yourself and your family. I don't even know how I would share that if I was worried about it. Next one is usually from my peers, and I started having kids young, really young. I was married with kids before most of my high school classmates graduated college. Some of them are just now getting married or just now having kids in their late 30s, early 40s, which I'm somewhere around that age, late 30s, early 40s. So they too don't know a lot about competitive cheerleading because their kids aren't really old enough to be involved in anything yet. Not that they would know about cheerleading as soon as they start playing like t-ball, but you know what I mean. I hear this from my peers all of the time. Oh, my daughter does competitive cheerleading. Oh, I know about that. Have you ever seen the movie? Is it like Bring It On? Is it like the movie Bring It On? And I'm like, well, like kind of, but not really. Like that was meant to be like a parody. It's not, if you go back and look, like it's not that great of a movie. It is part of our culture. It's part of our, like, I have to wonder, did you know that there's something called, what's it called? The American Archives, and they put certain movies in like the archives as like generational, like classic American movies. Couldn't tell you a single movie in there right now, but Bring It On, I think could be a contender for that because it's just like ingrained in our culture. But it was meant to be like a parody of cheerleading. So while like sure, it's kind of like that, but essentially the movie Bring It On is making fun of and exaggerating the actual sport of competitive cheerleading. So it's like, yeah, like that's your first reference. Okay, like I'll humor you with that one. And let me just pause here and make fun of myself a little. So when Abby started doing all-star cheerleading, I didn't know that it was called all-star for some reason. It was just like competition cheer to me. I never knew anything about it. Like I've never seen it before. And my aunt owned a cheer gym at the time, and her daughter was an all-star cheerleader for years and years. And we don't live really close. I've seen them like a handful of times in my life. And other than like social media, I don't know like a ton about them. And so we were doing a family reunion at their house, and I finally had something to relate to my cousin to, and brought Abby to her and was like, she just started competitive cheerleading. And my cousin was like, oh, is it like all-star? And I was like, I don't know what that is, but it's like what you do. Yeah, it's like what you do, which was all-star cheerleading. Which, like, is when I say it like that, it's not that bad, but like I was totally clueless. She's like, "Is it all star or is it rec?" Or is like, I was like, "Well, it's like what you do." Okay, speaking of bring it on. Oh, Abby's a high school cheerleader. Make sure she doesn't drop the spirit stick. Really? Hey, you guys think that you're being funny, but really that. Okay. You guys remember that the spirit stick started from what? A tree branch. Because Herky felt sorry for the girls that were not that athletic and not that good at the camp, but they had a lot of spirit. Oh, it cracks me up every time. Oh, she's an all-star competitive cheerleader. Does she have pom-poms? Well, no, that's not how it works. Do you date a football player? No. I think that somebody asked my daughter that once, and I could just see her anxiety. I could just see her blood pressure like boil. Like, how much more do you want to stereotype me, adult that I don't know and don't like? Here's one for you, all-star elite parents and athletes, especially the younger ones. How are you a cheerleader? How are you a competitive cheerleader when you aren't even in high school yet? It's like, how do you explain that to somebody? I always like roll my eyes and stumble over my words. Well, it's like, well, no, it's like, it's not like that. It's not like, let me just show you a video. That's usually what I say. Like, let me show you a video. Have you seen the Netflix series Cheer? But that series didn't come out until Abby was well into high school, and so we had no baseline. It was like, no, it's like club cheer. And they're like, well, how does that even work when you're. Here's another question. Who are you cheering for? If you're not a school cheerleader, who are you cheering for? Ourselves. We're cheering for ourselves to get a summit bid or a bid to worlds. That's who we're cheering for. This one I actually love because people's ignorance actually make us look really cool and important. When we would say we're going to Orlando to compete at the summit, back then it wasn't on TV. Now they have spots on, I believe, ESPN, one version of ESPN. But back in the day, well, I mean, and it still happens now, but like we all know that picture of watching cheerleading at Disney World with the castle in the background, that was UCA College Nationals. So it's like, yeah, we're competing at the same place, but it's not televised, but people don't know the difference in divisions. And so they're like, oh my gosh, like on ESPN? And we're like, yes, indeed. Although Abby's high school team was featured on ESPN for UCA High School Nationals one year, and that was really cool. But from the time she was like 11, we were like, yep, just like what you see on ESPN. And that gets people's buy-in. They're like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. She must be so good. All right, pay taxes, find out how to put 2 domains on one Shopify. Oh, back to the to-do list, stream of consciousness. Okay, last question. And this isn't false, but you know what people are thinking when they ask this question, when they're like, are you at the top of the pyramid? And Abby always handled that one with grace, where she's like, actually, I'm a base. I love her answer to this. Actually, I'm a base. And people say, are you a flyer? She's like, no, I'm the one that saves their lives and makes sure that they don't die if they fall. And people are like, oh, like what? Well, tell me more. But when people ask about, like, are you at the top of the pyramid? It's so interesting to me. And in all seriousness, it's really interesting to me how it seems like cheerleading in general, the word cheerleading, has this frozen image of the 1991-92 era of cheerleading, like the Saturday Night Live sketch with the cheerleaders and the Spirit Fingers with Will Ferrell and Sherry O'Terry. They had like the V on their sweater, and I think I saw an old video of, Worlds or High School Nationals or something where that was the typical uniform, and they had like the big fluffy pom-poms, and people would do like human pyramids where people would, get on their hands and knees on the bottom, and then they would build up the top, hands and knees, and all of that. It's interesting to me how that seems to have whatever was happening in that time. I don't know what the word for it was then, but cheerleading seemed to go quote unquote viral in that like early to mid 90s era. And that's what people picture for the most part when they hear the word cheer or cheerleading, and especially competitive cheerleading and school cheerleading. I think that you might have somebody who's like really into the movie Grease, and they think of that when they hear cheerleading and like poodle skirts and things like that. And that's not wrong. It's not bad to think those things. I find it, I wish that I would have gone to a real college and taken political science. I'm so interested in like the demographics and political science and psychology behind our culture of how many years ago was that? 30 years ago. How is that still 30 years later, the image that people have in their minds with like the pleated skirts and the cheesy chants? Sorry, Herky, may he rest in peace. But like cheerleading has come a long way since that era. But in terms of pop culture and the general population in America anyway, that's where their minds immediately go. However, thanks to Greg Whiteley and One Potato Productions and Netflix and Navarro Chair for creating a masterpiece that actually went viral. People who saw that are like, okay, like Gabby Butler is at the tip of everybody's tongue. So we own a bar restaurant in the Denver area, and I'm up there often, and we have some regulars, and my husband introduced me to one of the regulars. And, people ask what I do for a living. And I'm like, well, I like have a media company. It has to do with cheerleading. And they're like, cheerleading? Like, do you know Gabby Butler? And there's this regular that every time she sees me, she goes, Gabby Butler. And she tries to do like a cheer stretch. It's so funny. So we have come some ways, but I wonder what it's going to take for cheerleading as we know it today to be part of the cultural landscape, because it's definitely stuck in the early 90s right now, it's also fascinating to me. So let me know what you think. There's a way to leave comments on Spotify and on YouTube. So leave me a comment about like eye-rolling questions that people ask you when you tell them that your kid is a competitive cheerleader. Don't forget to also leave a review. It sounds egotistical, but it really does. Like, it's the algorithms, and it's like getting the podcast in front of people, and helps me to continue to make the podcast because of all of the chain of events that happen as a direct result of your reviews. So please just take the 30 seconds to leave a review, especially on Apple Podcasts. It helps me a ton. And until next time, remember, it's just cheerleading. And yes, I'm at the top of the pyramid.
What up, party people? This is Jason Larkins, host of the Let's Talk Cheer podcast, and I've teamed up with Kristen Wheeler of the Cheer Mom podcast and Dan Cotton of the Cheer Biz podcast.
That's right. Hey, everybody, Kristen here. We know that you love cheer, so why not dive into more perspectives? Tune into my podcast, the Cheer Mom podcast, for cheer issues spoken from the parent's perspective. Then head over to Dan's podcast, the Cheer Biz podcast, to learn from a gym owner on how to run a successful cheer business. And of course, don't miss the Let's Talk Cheer podcast featuring Jason Larkins, the one that we all know and love, where they talk about cheer from a coach's perspective.
Which means whether you're a coach, a cheer parent, or a gym owner, we've got you covered. Find all 3 podcasts on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and stay tuned for new episodes each week.